Trazodone is an antagonist of serotonin, H1, and alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. It is a drug used to treat major depressive disorder. In this video, I'll share my visual mnemonic to help you remember all the important information about trazodone so you'll be ready for test day. Looks like another night in Sin City. We're at the scene of a murder where two cops, one veteran who's seen it all, and the other a rookie fresh out of the academy, have been searching for evidence. Our grizzled veteran cop is placing down traffic cones to cordon off the area while the investigation is underway. Speaking of, let this traffic cone remind us of trazodone. Get it? Because traffic cone literally sounds like trazodone. Trazodone is a drug used to treat major depressive disorder. We'll talk more about this later, but for now, try to remember this traffic cone for trazodone. Let's take a look at the victim. Can't really see much of his face, but we do see that he was wearing a tough-looking leather jacket with a crossed-out smiley face on the back. That's pretty creepy. Seems like this guy might have had some enemies. Anyway, let this crossed-out smiley face remind us of serotonin antagonism. Get it? A happy face for serotonin, since serotonin is considered the feel-good neurotransmitter, right? And the red diagonal line crossing through it should remind you of antagonism. Trazodone is an antagonist or blocker of serotonin receptors. Specifically, it antagonizes serotonin 2 receptors. This mechanism is still being studied, but generally, this antagonism of serotonin 2 receptors alters serotonin signaling in the brain, and therefore mood. In summary, remember this crossed-out smiley face for serotonin receptor antagonism. Now, let's scan the scene for more clues. Hey, it looks like our young cop is bagging a broken harpoon gun found near the body. Now, I'm no detective, but there's a harpoon sticking out of the victim's back, which should make this harpoon gun suspicious. Let this broken harpoon gun remind us of H1 receptor antagonism. You know, since harpoon begins with H and gun rhymes with the number 1. So, harpoon gun for H1. Got it? Trazodone is also an antagonist or blocker of histamine 1 or H1 receptors. This antagonist effect at histamine receptors helps to promote sleep, which we'll talk more about later. For now, try to remember this broken harpoon gun for antagonism of histamine H1 receptors, and you'll be ready for test day. This must have been a surprise attack because the victim was still carrying the items he bought from the convenience store when he fell. See there? He dropped a large bottle of A1 steak sauce, which broke on the ground. This bottle of spilled A1 steak sauce is our symbol for alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. A1, alpha-1, got it? And this A1 sauce being dropped and broken represents how trazodone antagonizes or blocks signaling at alpha-1 receptors. Trazodone's antagonist activity at alpha-1 adrenergic receptors causes certain side effects, such as priapism and orthostatic hypotension. We'll talk more about these adverse effects later, but for now, try to remember this spilled A1 steak sauce for blocked alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. If there's anything to take away from the above, it's that trazodone is a relatively messy drug. It hits a ton of different receptors. Now that we've covered all the mechanisms of trazodone, let's talk about how it's clinically used. Oh no, it looks like this young cop is crying. He hasn't been hardened yet by the job like his veteran supervisor, so he's taking his first crime scene pretty hard. Let this crying cop remind us of major depressive disorder, which trazodone treats. Major depressive disorder is a condition characterized by a depressed mood and several other symptoms, such as loss of appetite, anhedonia, and poor concentration. It is due to low levels of neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin, generally known as the feel-good neurotransmitters. As you may recall from earlier, trazodone acts as an antagonist of alpha-1 receptors and serotonin 2 receptors, thereby modulating the levels of neurotransmitters in the brain. It's thought that these changes help to treat major depressive disorder. High levels of trazodone are required in order to be effective in treating major depressive disorder. In summary, try to remember this crying cop for major depressive disorder, which trazodone is used to treat. Notice how the veteran cop is yawning while putting down the traffic cone? This is definitely not his first crime scene. Let this yawning cop remind us of sedation, a major side effect of trazodone. This sedation is thought to be related to H1 receptor antagonism, which causes sedation by blocking signaling at wakefulness centers in the brainstem. Just think about how other antihistamines, like Benadryl, causes sleepiness. This side effect can even be harnessed in patients with insomnia in order to promote sleep. Trazodone is therefore extremely good for treating insomnia in patients with concurrent depression. Just remember this yawning cop to remind yourself of sedation. It looks like A1 steak sauce wasn't the only thing the victim dropped. He also dropped a large bratwurst, too. By the way, this bratwurst should remind you of priapism, or a prolonged erection. Get it? Because this bratwurst kind of looks like, well, you know. Priapism refers to an erection lasting more than 4 hours, independent of sexual arousal. Priapism is a medical emergency because if left untreated, it can lead to penile ischemia. The mechanism here is not understood well, but it's thought that trazodone's blockade of alpha-1 adrenergic receptors in the corpus cavernosa may lead to priapism. Priapism is an extremely high-yield side effect of trazodone, so don't forget it. Alright, we're almost done surveying the scene of the crime. Let's talk about our last symbol. It looks like these cops are going to be here for a while since their car tire is deflated. Poor guys. Anyway, let this deflated car tire remind us of hypotension, a potential side effect of trazodone use. Since trazodone is an antagonist of alpha-1 adrenergic receptors, it can cause hypotension that may present as postural lightheadedness. You shouldn't memorize this association, as you can reason through it fairly easily. You see, any drug that blocks alpha-1 receptors and inhibits vasoconstriction will cause a decrease in vascular resistance that lowers blood pressure. It's logical then that you can take this effect too far and cause hypotension. Try to remember this deflated car tire for postural hypotension, a major adverse effect of trazodone use. Okay, there are just a few other adverse effects of trazodone that we should mention before we wrap up. Since trazodone changes or modulates serotonin signaling in the brain, it can cause serotonin syndrome. We know that any drug that modulates serotonin can lead to serotonin syndrome, which is characterized by fever, tachycardia, altered mental status, hyperreflexia, and diaphoresis. Due to this risk, patients taking other serotonin-modulating drugs like SSRIs, tricyclic antidepressants, or MAOIs should especially avoid trazodone. Trazodone can also cause nausea, but this is pretty low yield for test day. Alright, time to take this evidence back to the station and start dusting for prints. But first, let's wrap up. Trazodone is an antagonist of serotonin, H1, and alpha-1 adrenergic receptors. Trazodone can be used to treat major depressive disorder by modulating serotonin signaling in the brain. It can also be used off-label to treat insomnia due to its strong sedative effects. A major adverse effect of trazodone use is priapism, which is a painful erection lasting more than 4 hours, independent of sexual arousal. Finally, trazodone can cause hypotension, serotonin syndrome, and nausea. And with that, we're finally done with trazodone. Catch you guys in the next one.